All right, it's a couple minutes past the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Laura Nelson. I lead marketing for Signpost, and today I'm going to talk specifically with roofers about online reviews, reputation management, so that you can stand out in local search, get the job, and get the review. So we're all familiar with this virtuous cycle, and I want to take you through the steps that show how important reviews are to homeowners and how you can systematize yourself and your team to get more of them. So quick walk through our agenda today. I'm going to talk about, again, why reviews matter to homeowners, how homeowners search online. We'll walk through a couple practical examples of that. We'll then talk about how to get homeowners to review your business. And then finally wrap up with how to address that feedback once you get it. My recommendation is to address both positive and negative reviews, and we'll take you through several steps to ensure you're doing that effectively. So let's get started. I like to level set with this quote from Jeff Bezos at Amazon, because I think it's super relevant to reviews and word of mouth today. It's about your brand. What Jeff says is your brand is what other people say about you when you leave the room. So this has always been the case, right? With neighbors talking to other neighbors about contractors they've done work with, whether it is a re-roof or maybe they had a landscaping job, etc. These conversations used to happen one-to-one, and what's happened with the internet is that the power of a review can reach many people. So we've gone from one-to-one to one-to-many, and as a result, your brand is getting defined en masse by what people are saying online, right? So you may have visibility into that room, but that room happens virtually. It is online in the form of your Google listing, your Yelp page, your Facebook page, etc. It's no longer the case where you can set it and forget it. It's really important to pay attention to what people are saying there, to how they're defining your brand, and to play a proactive role in joining that conversation and responding to what homeowners say. And this is why it is so important. As I mentioned before, word of mouth has moved online to the point where 82% of consumers are reading reviews for local businesses, just like yours. So it's not just about restaurants or retail. Certainly people are writing and reading reviews about those types of businesses, but even more critical is the contractors who are doing work on homes, right? They want to be sure that they're doing work or they're hiring someone who's going to do a good job for them. After a storm, weather event, or the re-roofing, that's a huge investment. And word of mouth is helping fill in the gaps on what a homeowner knows about a brand. Again, 82%, that's the clear majority. What's also interesting is that consumers are reading about 10 reviews before trusting a business. So that's a lot, but those are quick snippets that are going a long way to defining your brand online. If you think about that experience where you're evaluating whether to try a new restaurant, you can read those 10 reviews in a matter of seconds. So people scan 10 reviews about your business. If they're positive, they leave with a positive association about your business. They start to build trust with your local brand. However, if those reviews are negative or few and far in between, they're not building trust in your business, right? They're moving on to the next guy or gal on the list. So it's super important to establish that brand trust up front, and you only have 10 reviews to do it. That brand recognition, that brand trust is a building block for the foundation of all that you're going to do in your community, right? As I'll show as we walk through the examples of searching for a business online, evaluating it, reviews are really just at the forefront of what they'll discover later on. So oftentimes you won't get that second chance to make a great first impression. So you want to make sure that you are building that trust, with those first 10 reviews. Low ratings, they're really risky. I talked about whether, if you have reviews few and far in between, you're not getting the best shot of making that great first impression with a homeowner. This is a really important stat. So 87%, again, the majority of potential consumers are not going to consider a business with low ratings. Again, they're going to move on to the next guy or gal on the list. So I know I've thrown a lot of stats your way, but I just really want to underscore the importance of having great reviews, of establishing that quick trust with the homeowner. Because you can establish it quickly, you can grab their attention, but if you don't have it, you will be an afterthought. They will move on to somebody else to have that conversation and to complete that crucial job on their home. So I'm going to start with online search. I think this is really important to understand where reviews fit in, both from that homeowner point of view and also talk about how reviews fit in with the Google algorithm overall. We don't have all of the keys to the castle there, but we do have a few clues that Google has surfaced over time, and I want to share those clues with you. So first, starting with your customer. And I know this may sound very elementary, but we really want to go back to evaluating the experience through your homeowner's eyes and walk through what that experience looks like when they're searching on Google and helping and looking for solutions to their problems. You'll see this consumer has both devices available to her, within arm's reach. She's using a mobile phone, she's got her laptop. A lot of people are in this state today where they have both devices at hand, and interestingly, over half of searches are done on a mobile device. So you want to make sure that you're set up for success there as well. But if they have a problem, say there is a major weather event. I live in Colorado, a lot of hailstorms. You may be in Florida where there's hurricane activity each and every summer. Whatever the case may be, homeowners are more likely than not to start their search on Google. So I'll walk through what that looks like. Starting with what I'll call a category search. So if someone has a need, say they're looking for a roofer, and I'm just using the town I'm in, Lafayette, Colorado, as an example, may start with a category search. So what that looks like is you're putting in a general term like roofer, putting in a town, perhaps a state, and scrolling to what we call the Google 3-pack to look at the results. So you may see some ads above this. When I did this search this morning, I saw Google guaranteed ads. That's a very interesting product. And if you're not familiar with that, I definitely recommend you check it out. But for the purposes of this conversation, I'm going to focus on that Google 3-pack that happens below the map. Because Google's interface is really quite plain, your eyes are really drawn to where the colors are, and you're looking at the organic search rankings below that in the 3-pack. And what really draws your eyes here among the list, you see plain text again, but what draws your eye are the gold stars, right? That's the only indicator from the consumer point of view on whether a business is of quality, whether it's worth considering, right? So we've got 3 choices in Lafayette, a very competitive area. We're near Boulder, we're north of Denver. Again, a lot of hail and weather activity in the summer. So a lot of contractors are out here as well. As a consumer, I look at this and I am looking for the choice with the highest rating and the most reviews. So again, this is competitive, but if I'm looking at it through that lens, Scott's Roofing is the obvious choice to me. They have 4.8 stars and 116 reviews. That is a pretty great first choice, place to start my conversation with roofers. Now, I may evaluate all three, right? If I'm a smart shopper, I probably will. But Scott's really draws your eye in as an obvious choice in this particular search. And it's where a homeowner who sees the search is more likely to start. I'm going to take you through another search. And this one's a little different, but this happens all of the time. Call it a name search. This happens when my neighbor has given me a recommendation. So say I walked outside after a storm, or a few days later saw a crew on my neighbor's roof and wanted someone to inspect my own. I'd ask him, hey, who did you have come over, take a look at your roof? How do you like them? He may give me a referral in person. And so what happens with those cases, and by the way, those happen all of the time, is that he'll give me a name. Hey, check out Scott's Roofing. More likely than not, he doesn't give me the phone number or information on hand, but I take that information and I go to Google and find out how to get in touch. So that's what this is all about. This is the local search when you plug in the name into Google and you see what pops up. So on the right side, you see what we call a knowledge panel. This is where images and the map pop up. You get to learn a little bit about the business. Below that, links to the website, directions. Doesn't really apply to contractors so much in this scenario, but you'll see people put an address or a service area in their Google listing here. I also have other helpful information. Hey, it's a roofing contractor. Here are their hours. We see some disclosures that are more relevant to potential service interruptions these days. But what really drives our eye here is again, the number and quality of the reviews. That's that social proof that reinforces what my neighbor told me and gives me the confidence to follow up with Scott and give them a call. Now, I have been in scenarios too where I've gotten that recommendation and gotten to the knowledge panel on Google and seen that the online presence wasn't consistent with that referral. So if you do a lot of referrals today, make sure that your presence on Google especially matches that great word of mouth that you're getting. I'll talk about the ways that you can ensure that homeowners are doing this on your behalf. But I really wanted to take you through those different scenarios where someone's going in blind, searching by category, and then following up with their recommendation. You notice both of them start on Google. And that's why Google is super important to establishing an awesome online presence, starting with optimizing your listing and going from there, building on great reviews from there. So the goal is to capture that homeowner's attention, then get them on the phone, get them visiting your website, get them moving down the path of consideration so that sooner than later, you're out on their roof and they've forgotten all of those other choices that they may have called, right? That really is the goal. So again, Scott's reviews, I would, as a consumer, poke around, take a look at those. Again, 10 reviews is all it takes for me to form a great opinion about the business. And again, get the confidence to take that next step to schedule an inspection. Next, I want to go back into how reviews impact search, because we always see this on the front end. We do this in our everyday lives. Several times a day, we're searching for things on Google, and we're getting results that Google deems to be most relevant to our search based on where we are, who we are, what we're looking for, the terms we put in, and so forth. So I want to talk a little bit about how reviews impact that overall search algorithm. So reviews are super important. especially for local businesses and driving decision-making. But there are other important factors. They include the following. Proximity, really important. So how close is the searcher to those results that show up in the Google 3-pack? So you notice which results showed up for me this morning in Lafayette for Rupert. If you're in another state, you may see entirely different options for that particular search. So know that proximity plays a role in the Google algorithm. Next, prominence. This is where reviews definitely play a factor. So how strong are your ratings and reviews? Also your social signals on other important platforms. Website plays a factor in as well. Backlinks, are other websites linking into you, or are you linking into other websites? How strong is the network of links within your website? How well is it connected to other sites in the ecosystem? And finally, relevance. Both your website and your Google listing factor into these as well. So how well have you optimized keywords, not just on your website, but also on your listing as just an example. So a quick note on that, or a quick example of that, is that Scott's Roofing was listed as a roofing contractor. So I have seen businesses like yours listed as something else entirely, right? Google started with a set of data that it assumed to be true. And it's really up to the business owner to claim that listing and update that category. So make sure it says exactly what you do, right? If you're a roofer, you want to make sure that's reflected in that category. It shouldn't be landscaper, in other words, because you would be doing a disservice to yourself in showing up in that local search. That's one quick tip. If you haven't optimized your Google listing already, I strongly recommend that as a first step, because that will factor into your relevance in local search. So moving on, talked a little bit about how reviews show up on the front end and influence homeowner decisions. I'm going to move into the action part next, because this is where I get the bulk of the questions, and there's the bulk of the difficulty as well with contractors interacting with homeowners and getting them to take that next step, that final step to tie off a job. But I do want to recommend to you to start early. In other words, it starts at the beginning of your relationship. I hope that you're asking every homeowner who comes through a contact form on your website, a chat, etc., how they found you and what made them decide to call. Because more often than not, you'll hear someone made a recommendation to them, or they read your awesome reviews and they trusted that you do a great job. So that is a perfect opportunity to set the stage and say, look, we're really proud of that great reputation we've built online, and we want to do an amazing job for you and earn that review from you as well. That just plants the seed with the homeowner and gets them to understand, like, hey, these reviews are important, and hey, if they do a great job by me, I'll know that request is coming. It's just a little bit about planting the seed when it comes to that conversation, when you're starting that relationship, that's starting that journey of a re-roof or a repair, etc. Plant that seed. But there's also kind of a technical component here. And this is sort of operationalizing yourself, your team, to ensure that your intake process is set up for success. I want to talk about building your list. I hope everyone's really focused on this because it's super important. Your goal is to build the largest, most accurate database of local prospect and customer information in your market. And so what I mean by that is collect all the names, phone numbers, email addresses of the homeowners that you can get a hold of. What I mean by that is, like, everyone who comes in contact with you, whether they call in, whether they come through a chat, etc. Even if they don't do business with you today, This will be super helpful for you down the line when, hey, another storm comes through or they've got to pull the trigger. Maybe they bought a new house a few blocks away. You want to be the one who can get in touch with them quickly. And this is the bare minimum that I recommend you collect. Again, names, phone numbers, email addresses. This is a tough job because a lot of consumers, a lot of your prospects, clients are coming through a number of channels: phone calls, emails, your website, contact forms, maybe you've got a chat tool, etc. Really important to ensure that you've got the right field set up, you've got the right process on the phone to collect that information ahead of time. The reason for doing this up front is to ensure that you make the job easier once the job has wrapped to get that great feedback from the homeowner. Finally, your hub. If you aren't using a CRM today, I think this is super important. This is really the hub of information for your whole business. Popular players, AccuLinks, Job Nimbus, etc. Use whatever works best for your workflow, your processes, ones that your people find the most user-friendly. Whatever works best for you and your team, I recommend. And these are a couple great options, but there are other great options out there. The goal is to ensure that you are systematized. You're getting your business off of paper and into the digital world. Because again, this is just going to make your client communication a whole lot easier at the end of the day. So again, review your intake process. Make sure you're capturing that critical information from homeowners, because you'll be setting yourself up for success down the line. So I talked about having that little conversation ahead of time with the homeowner and planting the seed that you want to earn their praise, right? I think it's equally critical to get everyone on your team aligned around this idea of feedback and getting great reviews. So I've posted this awesome picture of Dale's Roofing Inc. And what I love about it is everyone looks really unified and sharp in their company colors, and of course, happy to be there. And of course, they're getting paid to be there as well. But this kind of just provides the illustration that it's critical to think as a team, to be looking out for one another, and to embrace the importance of feedback and reviews across a number of individuals instead of just one. I do think that this type of project needs an owner, but everyone on your team needs to be aligned in its importance. So keep that in mind. I've even seen some great programs where owners have incentivized people for getting reviews or for getting mentioned in reviews positively. And that's just a really great way to acknowledge the awesome work that people are doing on your behalf for homeowners. So let's move on to the nitty-gritty. Incorporating the ask into your process. I talked about ways you can start to plant the seeds, collect the information. Now let's talk about incorporating the ask into your process and why that's so important. The data shows that consumers who will leave a review for business when asked, in fact, 70% of them will. So that's a clear majority. They're happy to do it. And the hardest part is just to ask and then, of course, make it easy for them to do it. But most people are happy to do so. Let's talk about how to make that ask. First, why don't you think about where you want to target those reviews? And I've shared some logos of really important platforms today where that feedback will make a world of difference for defining your brand and for attracting more homeowners to your listing and ultimately to your business. And they are Google, Facebook, Yelp, Nextdoor. If you're not familiar with Nextdoor, highly suggest that you check that out. It's a hyper-local social networking site for communities, and a lot of people talk about businesses that they love on that site. So I know not all of these will have equal importance in your communities, but my guess is that you have a grasp on which ones may drive more interest than others. Universally, that is Google. No matter whether you're in a rural community or a more densely populated community, Google is where the majority of people are starting your search. But the other ones are opportunities to play around, right? Facebook, people are really engaged there. Yelp really is hit or miss. Unfortunately, it's something that you can't completely ignore altogether. However, it may not be super popular in your area, and if that's the case, would spend less time driving reviews there. If you log on to Nextdoor and find out that there's not a whole lot of activity there, you may want to double down your efforts on Facebook or Google. But those, I think, are a great starting point for determining where you're going to get the most bang for your buck, the most bang for your energy in generating great reviews from homeowners. Next, you've got to create and implement a system. So I talked about the importance of making that ask, and often what works best, after you've planted the seeds at the beginning of the relationship, once you're tying off the job, say your project manager is doing a final inspection on a roof, that's a great opportunity to ask for feedback verbally. How did we do for you? And what more can we do for you, right? Great opportunity to plant that ask. And hey, it would really mean the world to us if you wrote a review on our business. The challenge there is that people are really happy to do so, and often very happy that the job is complete, right? But they'll agree to it in person and then often move on with their day and move on to other activities, right? So what we really recommend is to make the ask in person and then follow up with technology. Make it super easy for someone to complete that ask. How can you do that? Lots of different ways. I've seen surveys sent in the mail, phone calls. What I recommend the most is a system like this one. This is the flow that is the Signpost product in particular. And what this does is makes it really easy for the homeowner to follow through, right? Links them directly to the Google listing, takes them to the review dialog. You see that in the middle. And then boom, the review goes live on your site, on your Google listing in particular. So 3 easy steps, right? From initial email to listing to your actual live listing on Google My Business. Now this can be done through a system like Signpost, which integrates with QuickBooks Online, which connects with Job Nimbus, and has a few other integrations as well. But you can also complete this via email, via text, whatever works best for your team. My recommendation is to incorporate this again into your process, ask everyone, and make it as easy as possible for the homeowner to follow through. So you're not done yet. I talked about the variety of ways that people can write reviews for you and how you can make that easy, but equally important to stay engaged, right? So what does that mean for you as the business owner? It means taking stock of where you are and measuring your performance. Lots of ways you can do this. I've seen people do this internally with spreadsheets, but I've also seen people do this in systems like Signpost. So here's an example of what that dashboard looks like. If you have all of your accounts set up within our system, you get a really easy day-to-day snapshot of how many reviews you've driven to Google, Facebook, Yelp, etc. makes it crystal clear on where you stand, what your ratings are, what your homeowners are doing in interacting with your messages, and shows you real health of your online reputation. However, there are other ways that you can interact with your reviews as well. So what I just showed you is a monitoring tool. It's equally important to interact with your reviews, respond to them one-on-one, and I'll talk about the importance why. But first, highly recommend you log into Google My Business. This is the free account that gives you access to your Google listing. It enables you to make those important updates like your category, your hours, etc., and also empowers you to respond to all of your reviews. So you log in, you gain access to analytics. I think these are really, really interesting because it shows how people are searching for and finding your particular listing. So are they finding you through discovery? That would be that category search I talked about, roofer in whatever market you're in. Or are they finding you directly? That would represent that blue section. You know, are they typing in the actual name of your business and landing on your listing? That's what this chart is all about. This is my favorite one in Google My Business Analytics, and it's all about customer actions. So what are people doing once they land on your listing? Are they clicking through to your website, requesting directions, calling you? I know directions is probably less relevant for you guys because you're always going to homeowners to do inspections and so forth, but really interesting to point out the trends over time. You can look at this by week, by quarter, by year, etc. And if you see differences in that data, say for instance, you're driving less traffic, can you go back and look at that search in your community and see if anyone else is doing something in particular with their listing that may be cannibalizing some of your leads? You can start to find some of those clues in the analytics section here. Finally, and perhaps most importantly in Google My Business, is you have the power to respond to every review. And Google has even highlighted this as important to your engagement online. And I'll read this out loud. Responding to reviews shows that you value your customers and the feedback they leave about your business. So high quality, positive reviews from your customers will improve your business's visibility. What they're saying here is that great reviews, of course, are going to factor in, and also that your engagement is important for this as well. I'm going to talk about how do you engage, right? We already know that you have to log in to Google My Business. So what happens next? I get questions all of the time about responding to reviews, whether they're positive or negative, and I'll take you through both scenarios. First, responding to positive reviews. Some people think that they only have to address the negative reviews, but I think it's so important to address the positive reviews as well. So here's a little step-by-step guide on how to do that. Now, first, you simply want to acknowledge the review. Hey, thanks for trusting us to fix your roof, right? You can do that easily with a sentence to capture steps 1 and 2. Number 3, through that response, you're demonstrating that you value feedback. It helps you express that as well. That helps set the expectation for other potential clients who are reading the review. It doesn't take much, right? You can just say, hey, homeowner feedback like yours, super important to us. We really appreciate it. Most importantly, with this type of response, it shows others that you care, right? You care about thanking them for the business, tying off the review, and hopefully doing business with them again in the future, right? So let's take a look at an example of a positive review response. Super simple, right? Nathan Carpenter wrote a great review on a roofer: professionalism, punctuality, quality, responsiveness. And the owner took the time just to write a few sentences. We appreciate you sharing your experience. It's our goal to always provide transparent and efficient service to our customers. Thank you for the opportunity to service your building's roof. That's literally all it takes. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time, but it really does help to personalize it to the writer. So I highly recommend that you address that response to Nathan or whoever that homeowner may be in your response. So that seems like easy enough, right? So let's talk about negative reviews, because this is where I get the bulk of the questions. These are a little more nuanced, and I know it can be so crushing to get a negative review, right? This is really detrimental to your brand, especially if you don't have a lot of reviews. So certainly one way to combat this, and the biggest way to combat this, is to bury it with lots of happy homeowner reviews. But I also recommend addressing it. You have to address this head on. First by acknowledging that reviewer, then apologizing, but only when appropriate. And of course, this is where the nuance comes in. Definitely recommend you offer multiple channels to get in touch. Some people are more inclined to follow up with an email. Some people are more inclined to call. Give them a couple options to communicate with you. But most importantly, take this situation offline for resolution. And the reason I recommend that is because you'll never win a war of words online. And it's also a bad look for others who are coming across your listing. So keep it short, sweet, professional, and take the conversation elsewhere. Walk through a couple examples of what that looks like. First, bad review from Joe A. I'll let you read that on your own. But all it requires is a really short but sweet response from the owner. Joe, we're disappointed to hear you're unhappy with the job completed on your roof. Would love the opportunity to discuss your concern over the phone. They give their phone number. I recommend adding an email address. Kindly the roof team, right? It shows that the team not only cares about the feedback, but wants to make things right with the homeowner. Short and sweet. Here's another example from Sarah F. Bad review here. You can click more to see more. Got a little bit of a longer response from the owner, but I think this one is also valuable. They acknowledge Sarah and provide a name. My name is Andrew Carr, and I'm the customer service rep here. Apologizes for the negative experience and talks about their experience with insurance claims as well as manufacturer claims. Wants to get in touch, talk about it more, and get into the remedy of the situation. I find this happens a lot as well. The next sentence is especially crucial, and maybe a big part of your review response is getting more background on what's going on. You can't do that unless you can find that person in the database. Sometimes there will be reviews for companies that are not yours on your listing. And if that's the case, I would definitely acknowledge that, hey, we would love to make things right, but we can't find a history of you being a customer with our company. And then giving them, of course, the opportunity to follow up with you offline, both phone and email, and work on that resolution. That happens all of the time, and that's definitely how I would recommend approaching someone who is not in your database. Maybe they are a competitor, etc. Acknowledge that professionally. I will recommend one more step on that, however, which is go through the protocols, whether it's on Google, Facebook, Yelp, etc., and report that review. You want to make sure you're using all of the tools available to you to follow up, to report that, to make sure that it's not too detrimental to your brand. There are, of course, no guarantees that that will get removed, but at least you're protecting yourself, right? You're flagging this to the people who review reviews themselves on those platforms and letting them know that, hey, this is a mismatch. Hey, this is not someone we've done business with before, and gain consideration and possibly removing that. I've seen all levels of success there, but the first step is flagging that and going through the process of trying to get that removed. In either scenario, super important to first write a response here. The reason is prospective clients, people who have not done business with you before will see that response. And many of them will really respect a professional response like this one and a dedication to making the situation right. This happens to every business owner. They'll get a negative review, and as painful as it is, it's so important to leave a timely response. Don't ignore it. Write that response in, start the reporting process if you have to, and then move on by burying this with lots of reviews from your happy homeowner customers. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your interactivity and attention. Please reach me at lnelson@signpost.com if you have any follow-up questions. Thank you so much.